Hello, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the offlane tier list for patch 7.34b. Let's get into it. Okay, starting with the dog shit tier, we have Timbersaw. Everybody expected this hero to be nerfed into the ground because he was the most picked hero on the previous patch, and yeah, he got some nerfs. They changed his spell amp talent. It's now a Whirling Death talent, which is a much shittier talent. They reduced his base damage by quite a lot at level 1, which makes his laning a lot weaker. In the previous patch, they've reduced a lot of his other numbers, in particular damage on the Timber chain. So Timber has just fallen off, but the main reason I would say why Timber and Broodmother are bad is not just the nerfs, it's also the carry meta has completely changed. For example, Gyrocopter is very powerful, and Gyro can max Q and destroy Timber in lane because it's magic damage, or you can flak the lane out and ignore the Timber. Same thing goes for Broodmother. She's a normal melee hero in lane, so you can kill her with Q, or you can just flak the lane out and flak her spiders, and she really, really hates that. Broodmother got her lifesteal reduced on creeps, which means it's harder for her to recover in lane and after fights by hitting creeps. Silken Bola early damage was nerfed, and that is a big way that she would win lanes is by Silken Bola just being busted at level 1. It's not anymore. And her base armor is now -1. So not so good. Both of these heroes are 40% win rate. Bristleback. This hero was dog shit previously, and he remains dog shit. They changed his Aghanim Scepter, so it no longer makes it so that you have this AoE goo, which was actually pretty good. And now it is the goofiest, wackiest Aghanim Scepter in the game, and a lot of people are saying it's probably the worst Aghanim Scepter in the game. You pretty much turn and then fart on people a bunch. I've not seen this do any work. It looks really funny. That's what he has going for him. But I think Bristle still suffers from all of the same issues that he did on the previous patch. He's an offlaner without a stun, without much utility, and you can pretty easily beat him in lane. You just get a stick. So all of these heroes are 40% win rate, and there's a pretty good reason why. Okay, moving into the D tier, we have Marcy. I actually think Marcy is a very good hero with how her buff now works, that it's permanent, and you just have to stand close to somebody for it to have 100% of the effect. I think that's great. However, I think that she's more suited for a support role, given how that was changed. Doom, you can now use items during his ultimate. However, the ultimate reduces healing to 0. So you now counter Morphling and, Satanic and all of these, like, Alchemist, all of these healing and regen-based things. But you can Force Staff yourself away, you can BKB, you can do all of these things to save yourself during the Doom. So it's fairly bad, I would say. Devour's gotten nerfed a million times over in the previous patches as well, so Doom is just not what he used to be. Sand King. Oh man, I was ready to put this hero in S tier. I really was. And then the B patch came out where they reduced pretty much everything across the board on him. The reason that in the 7.34 patch Sand King was so strong is because, mainly I would say, because your Sandstorm moved with you, which meant that you could put it down in lane and then like move over to a creep camp, or you could put it down in lane and then move to like the next creep wave, or slowly run away from the opponents or where their sentries are, and that's pretty good. But now the move speed on that has been reduced significantly in the early levels. Damage on his Q was reduced significantly in the early levels. So Sand King is back to dumpster tier after about a week of being good. Axe, I think what he got changed is he got a little bit of damage on the early level on his spin, but then they've reduced his agility gain, so he's squishier outside of the laning phase. I'm not sure why the agi gain change was necessary, because I feel like Axe has been in a pretty bad spot for a while. Vanguard has been nerfed significantly because everybody was disassembling it and then building into like Octarine core. Axe wasn't doing that, so it's like the main item for him, being Vanguard, got nerfed, but it wasn't his fault, so Axe is not in a great place. Alchemist, so this hero, I honestly don't think there's a lot of space for him to farm as much as he wants to in the off lane. A lot of the 4 positions people are picking right now, it's like Earth Spirit, Tusk, it's these melee ones that don't really like to play against an Alchemist, with an Alchemist. I also think that the carry meta is very strong against Alchemist. There's a lot of Ursa, Slark, Gyrocopter, like I mentioned, and these heroes Dumpster Alch. He did receive some buffs, so I do think he's actually a pretty decent carry, and maybe an okay support, but only if you're flexing it and you're like a competitive player, which doesn't really apply to us, to pubs, Dragon Knight. So this hero got a few buffs. I think he got a little bit of move speed and corrosive damage in his dragon form, which is nice, and dragon tail cast range, I think, also in his dragon form. But same with Alchemist. I think the carry meta is very powerful against him. All the heroes that I mentioned will dumpster a DK in lane. I think DK's a little bit slow. He's pretty much just a stun, and his stun is not as strong as it used to be because of the nerf to all of the stuns across the board, but they're rebuffing some of them, and it feels like DK is just kind of lagging behind in that sense. But DK, yeah, same hero that he was on the previous patch, which was just not very good. Abaddon, I actually think this hero is not a bad 5 with all the changes and buffs that they're making to Mist Coil. But as an offlaner, it's a little too do nothing. Like the offlane Abaddon, the way he used to play is, you know, you max the shield, you like dumpster lane by doing that, and then you run at towers with his E. But it feels like a really old strategy that's not, even if it does work, I don't think you really give a shit about somebody just sitting in a lane on this patch in Dota. Like, a lot of people are running around and fighting as a 5-man ball right now. And if you do that as Abaddon, you're pretty much going to play it like a support anyway. So I don't really see the point of having him as an offlaner. Enigma. The big change to this hero is that they made it so that his Eidolons cost HP and they can't deny creeps. This completely neutered him. However, on the 7.34B patch, they made it so that you can now point and click and target where the Eidolons spawn. So maybe after a couple of patches, the hero will be back. I mean, Blackhole is still one of the most potent late game abilities in all of Dota. But with that being said, I think a big reason he was a good laner is all the denies that you get, especially as an offlaner. This hero would have like 34 denies or something at the end of laning phase, and that's just not going to happen anymore. Okay, moving on to the C tier, which is pretty much every offlaner in the game. We have Winter Wyvern. So this hero got hit with what people thought was a huge nerf in 7.34, or at the very least for core Wyvern, and that is that you can no longer damage units who are Winter's Cursed, which means that the damage-dealing Winter Wyvern build is kind of dead in the water. But in 7.34B, they increased the radius on Splinter Blast, and they reduced the cooldown on it. And Soul Ring is a good item. Mana Boots are still a great item. So I genuinely believe that core Wyvern, offlane Wyvern is still decent. You probably go for some sort of utility build. I think you're going to do pretty well in lane because it's a universal hero. You still get those stats. Probably build into an Atos. I know Atos doesn't build from the stats that it used to, but that's okay because it's very, very cheap and gives you some nice HP. And so Winter Wyvern, I think, is pretty decent because you're going to be using Splinter Blast constantly to push out the lane into farm, and they buff that ability. So I think Wyvern's decent as an offlaner. Magnus, they buffed in power. They gave it more cleave. They gave it more damage. And in the history of Dota, every time they do that, the hero becomes meta. That's just how it is. Juggernaut, Slark, Ursa, a lot of these heroes that really like empower on them are very popular right now. So I think Magnus is fine. He's not what he was, you know, a couple of patches ago when you would go for all the universal hero items and like everybody was building Magnus as a carry. I don't think that that's necessarily what you want to do every game now, but he's definitely still decent. Underlord, he actually received a nerf in this patch. They increased the cooldown on his Firestorm by 1 second, which is not a hugely significant nerf. I still think Underlord has a place. I think whenever you're playing against these illusion heroes, Underlord is one of the best heroes in Dota. Also, like heroes like Puck, Storm, where the root is very effective. He's always going to be good. Like, Underlord players will play this hero regardless. I think it's fine. Batrider, he's been nerfed a lot, but I firmly believe that so long as Firefly is a very strong ability, it means that you can always cheese the lane and 50-50 it by just pushing the wave with Firefly, farming jungle camps, cutting waves, and then eventually getting the levels and the items that you need to have an impact. So I think, and also he's a universal hero, so God knows you're always going to win lane on universal heroes. So I think Bat is fine, but I think you have to be a Bat player. I don't think you just want to go learn Batrider right now if you're just a, you know, an offlaner looking for something to learn. Centaur. So everybody was very excited about the change to a stun, where if you press it, at least at the start of the patch, pretty much anything could happen to you. You could get stunned, silenced, whatever, and the stun would still go off. I think they fixed it. So if you get stunned, you can't use it. But still, you can hit people with his stun while you're moving, which is cool because it's a lot easier to hit during the laning stage. And They changed Hitch a Ride as well. I don't remember how they changed it, but Philip will put it here somewhere. I don't know. That's how they changed it, guys. Look at that. I don't think it's hugely significant because I haven't seen anybody going for Aghanim Scepter on Centaur. But I've thought since Hitch a Ride gave you the ult for the duration of it that it's decent. That's why he's in C tier. I think the hero's fine, but maybe he needs a few more buffs. Tidehunter. So they replaced his Tentacle Surprise with Anchor Surprise now, which is actually pretty good. Like, this thing is annoying, depending on the hero that you are. I was Morphling the other day, and this guy put this on me, and I tried to turn and click it, and it just takes too many clicks to kill. So I'm honestly really shocked why Tidehunter's win rate is so damn low. Maybe it's because of all the things I mentioned before with these other heroes, that the carry meta is kind of strong against Tidehunter. But I do think his little anchor that he gets from the Aghanim Shard is very powerful. Last 10 seconds, man. Fucking 10 seconds. That's crazy. I refuse to put him anywhere other than C tier or above. Visage. I think Visage is the same hero that he's always been. The items that are very popular right now in general. Solar Crest drums. Very strong items. Visage likes to build them. There's a lot of melee fours being played that I think do very well at setting Visage up for a pretty good lane. Earth Spirit can roll in, do some damage, set you up for some nice soul assumptions. I think Visage is decent. Pangolier, at the start of the patch, he got pretty hard nerfed. They changed his shield crash, so it now gives you a barrier rather than damage reduction. And then they made it so his passive does not disarm. And his win rate tanked. However, in the next patch, in the B patch, they buffed all of these things, and now his win rate has skyrocketed. So I think Pango is decent, but probably a better mid. Necrophos. So the big reason that I think Necro is viable, obviously in this patch, they just gave him this Aghanim Scepter where you now apply 60% of your regen and damage during your Heartstopper, which means if you get Heart, Sanjin Kaya, these sorts of items, you are doing a pretty good amount of damage with your Heartstopper. However, one of the biggest reasons I think Necro is strong right now is because you can use Ghost Shroud and BKB at the same time, and Nullifier no longer goes through BKB. So it's the one way that you can actually beat Nullifier as Necro, whereas before, there was no way to beat Nullifier as Necro. And in fact, if more people want BKB, maybe the hero's win rate would be even higher, and I'd be putting him in B tier. The only reason I have him in C tier is because the win rate is not stellar in pro-level pubs right now. Speaking of not stellar win rate in pro-level pubs, Mars has about a 46% win rate. I don't think that reflects how good the hero is at all, because that would put him in D tier in terms of win rates, because most of these D tier heroes are that low in the off lane. But I think Mars requires a lot of skill right now because you have to hit good spears because the ult has such a damn long cooldown. And I also think that Mars is better off with heroes that you can spear into arena and actually kill somebody in that. So like Snapfire, Skywrath Mage, Mirana, these sorts of heroes. I think you have to combo with Mars to make him good. And if you do combo with him, he's still excellent. Death Prophet. So they just buffed her move speed a little bit, which is cool because her ult gives her percentage-based move speed. And they also buffed the damage on her spirits. So she went from D tier to C tier with these changes. Greaves is a fine item. Pipe, Sanjin Kaya, the items that Death Prophet likes to build, they're still quite strong. Not broken, but still quite strong. So I think DP is fine. And she actually does very well against a lot of the carries that are popular right now. The melee ones, at least. Like, if you can somehow see what you're laning against or get lucky and you're against a melee hero, you will destroy them in lane. However, if you play against Gyro or Drow, you will be very sad. If Gyro and Drow and these sorts of ranged heroes were like dog shit, then Death Prophet would honestly probably be A tier right now. Oakley dokley, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the B tier heroes, which, by the way, are the very overpowered ones. Everyone B tier and above are very strong. In my opinion, there's a pretty huge difference between B and C tier heroes in the offlane right now. That's just the way it is. Viper. So with this hero, they increased the speed on his ult. They increased the duration by 2 seconds. They increased the attack speed slow on it as well. So it feels like if this fucker gets his ult on you, he gets 5 stacks of his Q and kills you very easily. So he's very strong at level 6. And unironically, I know people are memeing about it right now, but if you get to 25 and you become a universal hero, it makes for a fucking insane late game hero. He is crazy good in the late game. So Viper is strong right now, and he really likes playing with Earth Spirit, Spirit Breaker, Tusk, these melee fours that people are enjoying to pick right now. Beastmaster, so the significant change to him is they turned his Hawk into a meme. It now circles around him and stuns people, or not stuns, that'd be very overpowered. He roots people for a small duration, and it can keep going for the entire duration of the Hawk. It's actually pretty good. I don't know if I would prefer the old Hawk or this one. Probably the old one a little bit more. But he still wins lane with axes because you can just shove the lane out, stack ancients, you can farm the ancients, you still get bongo drums with the Aghanim Scepter. So Beast is still a perfectly fine hero. You just want to pick it with the right four, you know, Snapfire, Willow, something like that maybe. Earth Spirit, this is an S tier hero. Earth Spirit is overpowered, and that's why in mid or in the off lane, he automatically becomes B tier or higher. He becomes immune during his roll. You can roll through Chrono, you can roll through Blackhole. You can escape so many things with this ability now. He is so hard to catch and so annoying. However, I will say, you do want to be an actual Earth Spirit player to play him on this patch. He's not easy, but he's very good. If you are an Earth Spirit player, enjoy the free MMR, buddy. So Slardar, they changed him, so his puddle is bigger now, and you gain attack damage from the puddle based on your bash ability. So in laning stage, he is a very strong, very hard to trade with. Solar Crest is a very popular item right now, so you can amp plus Solar Crest somebody or Roshan and kill it very quickly. And then they also reduced the cast point on his stun, so it's a lot easier to blink in and stun people without them just like BKBing it, for example. So Slaughter is actually decent right now for the first time in a long time. Spirit Breaker. They've nerfed this hero a decent amount. In particular, they've reduced his charge speed. It doesn't seem to have that much of an effect, though, I gotta say. Octarine Aghanim Scepter is still an insane build. It reduces his charge time, or the cooldown, to like 5 seconds, which is crazy. He's still just a late game menace. You know, you show anywhere on the map. When you're losing and you die, it feels so oppressive. I think Spirit Breaker's still good. He was overpowered before, and he got nerfed, and he's still very good right now. Fraser. So the significant change they made to him is that his passive now has the Aghanim Shard built in. So he's back to old Razor, where if you press abilities on him, he zaps you, which is very good. And then it's also nice for farming creeps as well. Static Link with the Aghanim Shard now sucks people in, which is honestly pretty good, especially if you can get the Aghanim Shard from like the Tormentor in the late game. It feels like a really nice Tormentor Shard to get. And then in the previous patch, they increased the buff duration on a Static Link pretty significantly. So he is able to keep his damage for longer in the laning stage and dominate lanes that way. Venomancer. This hero was strong and still is strong. I think Veno dumpsters most of the carries that are being played right now. The Plague Wards are still extremely good for scouting, taking over areas of the map, farming a shitload, making sure you don't get ganked. Veno's a great vessel builder, a great solar builder. It's a universal hero, and universal heroes are still more popular than ever, especially with Vessel, which is now a good universal item because it has a crown, so you can get a crown early and get some extra damage. But Veno is strong. It seems quite annoying to play against right now. Okay, moving on to A tier. Look at that! New heroes, actual new heroes in a tier list. I'm excited about this. So let's start with some of them. So Earthshaker, the big changes to him. Well, there were 2 changes, so you know, of course they're going to be big because there's only 2. Number 1, he has extra attack range on his enchant totem, which doesn't seem that significant, but when you're laning against a fucking gyrocopter every game, and you want to hit him in the face with your enchant totem, which you're going to be leveling as a core shaker, you're going to need that attack range. It's also good for securing range creeps, securing denies without stepping up to the lane too far. And they increased his aftershock radius by 50. That's insane. That means when you get the Aghanim Shard, that's even bigger by 100 because there's little aftershocks along the entire fissure. It also means that it's easier to combo his stuff. You can fissure into Enchant Totem, into Echo Slam from farther away, so you don't need the Blink Dagger. Earthshaker is great. This is a very strong hero in general. Brewmaster. So this hero at the start of 7.34 was completely imba because Fire Stance gives you attack speed. 25 attack speed and to be particular, once you have it maxed out, and you brew yourself up, that's going to be 75 attack speed. So do the math. He's hitting real fucking hard. People aren't even turning into the split form to fight people on Brewmaster, and they're basically carrying the game this way. However, in the B patch, they had to nerf the crit damage on the fire stance, but it hasn't seemed to impact the hero's win rate by too much. I also think the Aghanim Scepter, the little Bruling that you get, is at a very good place right now. It feels incredibly strong to have like a permanent Wind Panda, or use the Earth Panda to siege, or the Purple Panda to, I don't know, pull people in or whatever. Like, this hero has a lot of utility. It's very strong. Darkseer. Speaking of utility, good lord. Universal hero, so he wins lanes. You don't need to go Soul Ring, Rush, or any of this weird bullshit. The bottle refills and suiciding, like, those days of old Darkseer, those are gone. We don't need to do that anymore. You win lane by just having 100 damage because you're a universal hero. And then outside of the laning stage, he is pretty much the best buff your team hero in Dota. You get Pipe, you get Greaves, you make your team immortal, you surge people, you get a replicate of the enemy carry with your wall. Vacuum wins team fights, wins games in the late game. Darkseer is fucking crazy, man. And he plays very well with Earth Spirit, Earthshaker, Tusk, and these are very popular heroes. Lycan, pretty much the one universal hero that was very popular on the previous patch that didn't get nerfed into the ground for some reason. People are still doing the old universal hero build on him in the off lane, which is going for Helmdom 2 into, you know, all of the stat items, mat to style, and that sort of bullshit. Still very good. I've seen a strategy where people are sending wolves through the portal to go deny the enemy wisdom rune at 7 minutes into the game, which is pretty cool. But Lycan, still very strong. The only thing they changed about him is he doesn't fear Lone Druid Bear. that's the change on this patch. So he's still good. Night Stalker, very strong hero. So Crippling Fear now does damage per second, which is very significant because it means without damage items, you can almost full to zero supports now. So even if you fall behind, like on Night Stalker, there used to be this thing where if you're ahead in items, then you can kill heroes. But if you fall behind, you barely just don't have enough damage to threaten to kill a hero in your silence. But now it does damage, so you pretty much always do. And when you ult, it reduces the cooldowns on all of your other abilities entirely. Like, it refreshes them completely, which is fucking crazy. So you can silence somebody for like 14 seconds straight, which is not okay. It is hard to pull off. Like, it's a lot harder to pull off than meets the eye. But if you can, it's really OP. Primal Beast, I mean, in my opinion, ever since they made his ult stun go through BKB and then also do more damage on every smash, he's been very strong. But I also think Primal Beast is just good against the support meta right now. Like, Nature's Prophet is the most popular hero in the game currently, and Primal Beast can fucking destroy, like, he's the counter to that because you just trample out of the trees. You're completely fine. You have multiple ways of getting out of the trees, and Nature's Prophet can't do shit if you get on top of him. So Primal is very strong, but he was strong before. He's still very good. Legion, speaking of being strong before and still being incredibly powerful, she got a 5 move speed nerf. And then I think they nerfed like one other thing about her, but it was nothing like hugely significant. Blade Mail's still a very strong item. Everybody's rushing it. I see this hero ending games with like 300 duel damage consistently, even if she loses. It's very powerful. She's an amazing anti-carry, beats every carry in the game, in the late game, just by virtue of her duel and Blade Mail. And Slark did get nerfed a little bit. Depth Shroud now has a 0.01 second fade time or whatever instead of 0.5, so it's way less OP, which means Slark has fallen off a little bit, and Slark, in my opinion, is like the ultimate Legion counter because you end duel with Depth Shroud, which is very stupid. So I'd say Legion is a pretty big fan that Slark got a little bit of a nerf. Okay, moving on to the S-tier heroes. There they are, ladies and gentlemen, in their glory. I do want to say, for everybody watching, PSA, the S-tier heroes are fucking broken. Pick them. If they're in the game, pick them. It's the start of a patch. I assure you, it's free MMR. These heroes are not all right. They need to be nerfed. They're probably going to be nerfed a few times and still be S-tier, because that's what happens at the start of patches. So let's get into it. Nature's Prophet. Now, he deals damage on his Q. And even if you eat the sprout, if you like Q a wave and then use the sprout to spawn trees, it still deals damage in the AoE. This is amazing for farming. This is amazing for harassing people in the laning stage. I would suggest as an offlaner, you probably go for 2 points in this and then max the trees, depending on if you need to shove towers or not. But I see a lot of people literally just going 4-4-0 and then skipping talents and then maxing the trees. Midas is very strong. On core heroes right now, Nature's Prophet is one of the best Midas carriers in the game. Solar Crest is good. Vessel is good. People are going for that on Nature's Prophet. Atos is good. People are going for that on Nature's Prophet. Nature's builds everything. He builds everything. So if there are broken items that you just need to get to, he can get them. This hero is Imba, man. It's Imba. And if you pick it, you're denying the enemy 5 from being Nature's Prophet and then beating you. So pick it. I assure you, it will be banned unless all 10 people in your game are too bored of Nature's Prophet to pick it, which is very rare. Vengeful Spirit. So this hero, the significant changes are her stun now has actual duration on it. It's not dog shit, so it's a very nice spammable stun. This is compounded by the fact that she has a stun cooldown reduction talent and an Aghanim shard that makes it stun another guy, and another talent that increases the cast range of the stun. So her stun is Imba, and her W now reduces the damage that the enemy team deals to you when you hit them with it. So it's one of the best trading abilities in the lane. 85 damage for something like 20 mana at level 1. I don't remember the exact number, but the mana to damage ratio on her W is unprecedented. It reduces their armor too, so you do even more damage to them. But even if you just hit them with the 85 damage, that's enough to justify this ability on a 16-second cooldown. Swap gives damage reduction, which is amazing against these chronospheres, these gyrocopters that are going to commit all of their stuff onto one guy. These carries that are very popular right now. Aghanim Scepter is amazing on Venge because she's a universal hero, so she gains a shitload of damage from all of these stats that you're getting. But then also, you swap somebody out, you give damage reduction, you die, you survive because you have the Aghanim Scepter. Venge is nuts. This is like also a hero that is like must-pick territory. Otherwise, you're going to play against it, you're going to lose the lane to her because she's a 5 as well. Dawnbreaker. So the big thing they changed about Dawnbreaker is that her ult now pierces BKB. It's very hard to deal with. These heroes that Dawn would counter, you know, the Void, the Bane, like all of these heroes that you would counter initiate on, you would beat her by virtue of just like, oh, I'm going to BKB and stand at the Dawn ult anyway. Her laning is amazing. She has one of the best level 2 power spikes in Dota. Her stat gains are amazing. The heroes that I just mentioned, Void, Bane, are very popular. Bane is even being played as a mid hero right now because of the Nightmare changes, and Dawnbreaker, you grip on Bane, and it's the easiest Dawnbreaker ult in the entire game. I also think in a patch where Dawnbreaker's abilities are strong, she will be very strong in this current map because there are so many camps to farm that you can just sit in your safe lane. Your entire team can be four-manning somewhere else and getting kills and doing stuff, and you can farm a huge area of the map and still be there with your team. Whereas if you have some other offlaner that's doing that, you could honestly be griefing the game because you need to be there with your team. And so you're not going to farm as much. So Dawnbreaker, you can actually get like big items on her, the Deso, the Echo Saber, and stuff like that. You're eventually going to scale to be a core. And all of these S-tier offlaners can also be played as 5. So I would highly suggest that you try picking all of them. Probably Nature's first, then Venge, then Dawn is the order. But they're all worth playing. They're all very, very strong. But anyway, let me move this. There's the list. There it is. Hello, everyone that skipped to the end. See ya.